Okay, and we are rolling. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Napoleon and Gueco podcast. How are you doing today, Gueco?
I'm doing good as always, man. How are you
Yeah.
doing, Napoleon?
Oh, great. I know we were talking about in our previous episode about how we do have to make mistakes in life, how as long as we don't let history repeat itself, it wasn't all for nothing.
Completely agree, man. People
Yeah.
deserve second chances. When it comes to punishment, for example, some countries in Eastern Europe, they have very soft punishment for crimes, and they have very low crime due to that. Like even murderers get like really nice treatment, and they get free time and they're not shackled. Whereas in America, you have some of the harshest punishments for crime, and the prisons are filled with criminals. So, but I think it's a fine line. And also, you have to look at like countries like in Iraq and that part of the country, the Arabic countries. Some of them have very harsh, strict rules, and people report that there's not that much crime and it's very safe out there because the punishment for committing a crime is so grave that people, it's a deterrent. So, that's there's something to say about that, I guess. Punishment is like it's a very tricky topic, Especially, in America, you could say that there's a lot of other things going on, such as the money that comes in, the revenue that comes from the penitentiary system and all that. But aside from that, I think giving people second chances seems to be the right approach. There is a punishment, but it's not too harsh. We want to still give you a chance to rehabilitate.
No, I understand. I mean, you are right about the fine line thing, but you do kind of have a point about certain countries where if you steal, you get your hand cut off.
Yeah.
And there could be stores where they could just walk out, leave everything sitting there. Nobody's touching it because they don't want their hand cut off.
Yeah.
So,
You want to keep your
if
hand.
you do have harsher punishments, less people will be doing certain things. I mean, I understand what you're saying. There are some cities, though, that do have loose crime laws where maybe sometimes there are people I know who maybe went to jail at one point, but then they got out, they were given a second chance, they became a changed person. Although there is that fine line, I still think it also varies based on the individual, especially when you have a system like ours. So there will be some people who will be glad that they got the chance, and they're like, okay, I messed up, but that's not happening again. And, they don't do it. But then there will be some people who get released, they get a less harsh sentence, and then they just go out and start committing more crimes because they're like, well, hey, if I know there's not going to be many penalties, I can just keep like doing this stuff. And that's kind of the problem. There's been stories about people who've had reports, multiple charges against them. They'd serve no jail time or anything, and then they go out and kill someone later on. And then usually they go to jail after that. But that's kind of the thing, is that some people will be happy for it, but some will just see it as open season if you don't really have penalties. It all depends on the individual. In New York City, when they kind of had it to where they had loose laws where there was really no penalties for theft, these stores kept getting robbed. But then they kind of just started to throw the book, and they started to make like harsher penalties, or, there were going to be charges if you started to steal, and then less stores were getting robbed.
Well,
So,
yeah. And the thing is, like, it's such a multi-variable thing, It's also about the community kind of. I think, crime has a lot to do with people misbehaving in not because we kind of talking about crime now, but we started off with maybe the things that we were talking about before weren't crimes per se. They were just people not being responsible adults or
not,
part of society.
or not being respectful.
Right, but in both cases, just somebody that's doing the wrong thing all the time. There's a divide there where you say, okay, it's not just the parents, or it's not just the criminal system, it's not just but the community. It's like they don't feel part of a community. And it's so easy to not feel part of a community because you don't need anybody to live, right? Like, I mean, some people are living now without getting out of the house still, right? Like working from home, groceries delivered, Uber Eats. When they do get out, it's just quick in and out. so they're nesting all
Well,
the
yeah,
time,
that was a lot of people during the pandemic.
right? And that separates you from the community, quote unquote. And then if you don't feel part of the community, you're more likely to do things that you don't really, do things that others might seem as inappropriate because you don't care. You don't care
Right.
what they think.
I
They're
mean,
not
and I know what you're saying is that kind of like
disconnected.
somebody goes out, if they have some active shooter that goes out and shoots up a school. Like, of course, it was horrible for them to do it. A lot of times people look at their background and, they weren't like quite all there or something like that. But what a lot of them have in common is that kind of like what you said, they grew up,
Exactly.
they got
Yeah.
rejected by society, or they got shut out. They felt like they didn't belong anywhere. And then one day
Yeah.
they just snapped and they were like, oh, well, whatever. And then that's when they go and they just, I don't know, get
And
illegal firearms and they're just like, bam, bam, bam.
and
Which
then the
it's
worst
it's sad
part,
that
the,
it
the
happens, but people kind of
yeah.
think, oh, what was their problem? But a lot of these people, they're normal people. They have happy lives. They don't get it. And that's the
Yeah.
thing is like when I see that stuff, like, sure, it's sad and I'm not defending the shooter, but I try to put myself in their place. Like, why would they reach the point where they would want to
Yeah,
go
for
and
sure.
shoot people?
Yeah.
And
It, ta-
I
it, ta-
think
it takes a lot.
the sooner we can find out why people get into that position, and like there, and a lot of times, like people can see there was something in a lot of those shooters that wasn't right. They could see something like
Somebody could have stepped in,
if
I
you knew
guess,
them well enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say there will be times someone pulls a fast one, no one saw it coming.
Right.
But a lot of them, like the shooter in Florida a few years ago, a lot of people knew something was wrong. Somebody could have stepped in and prevented that incident.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, the sooner we find it where someone steps in and just kind of notices something going on, I mean, that's really what's going to lower the rate of these crimes. Because a lot of times, and I know this, not everyone will agree, but a lot of times everyone's quick to say, well, it's the gun's fault. If we ban guns, the
Oh, yeah.
shootings won't happen. Like a lot of times people get these firearms from like the dark web and stuff like that.
It's too late.
Yeah,
It's
if
too
you
late
ban
to
guns, they
ban
could still
guns.
illegally obtain those firearms.
Yeah, it's too late.
Whether or not you agree with him, there was a candidate who ran for president, Vivek Ramaswamy, and whether or not you agree with his politics, that's fine, but I felt like he was spot on when it came to the reason for school shootings, as he was saying that we have a mental health crisis in this country, and
Right.
that is the reason why the number of active shooters has just kind of been jumping up over the past few years.
But one big, huge thing, and I would say the reason why shooters are still going to be an ongoing thing, and it's very hard to stop it, is because society's glorification of these people after the fact. Yes, of course, right when it happens, everybody's like, oh my God, who did this? Who is he? Blah, blah, blah. But then they become legends in a way. They become characters in books and magazines and TV shows, and even the parents and the people around those people who did that become known figures sometimes, depending
But
on their
not
situation.
necessarily in a good way. I mean,
No,
if they
not
were
in
to
a
make
good
a
way,
movie
but
about
still,
that person,
fame
they
is
wouldn't be
better.
portrayed as a hero.
Bad fame is better than no fame. Bad fame is better than being neglected by society or nobody knowing who you are. You see what I'm saying? That's the problem, is that a lot of these shooters do it because of that. They want the attention, ultimately. If they're gonna go anyways, what better way to go to remain in the books of history, because you were a shooter.
Right.
And it's like we all remember the shooters and the killers. Do we remember the names of the victims? Like, rarely we ever remember those
No.
names. But everybody knows, any name. You can, Ted Bundy or Dahmer, whatever. Like, we all remember those names forever. Forever. They're gonna be, well, I mean, we'll see how it goes. For our lifetime, for sure, those names will be known forever. And so that's a big problem, is that we have an infatuation with these crimes, and because humans are not developed enough yet to go away with that, to say, no, don't give any glorification to these people, and just really see the act for what it is. It's just something immature, something underdeveloped. Ultimately, it's underdeveloped to go and do something like that.
I get your point about how, hey, this person, they know that they've got nothing going for them, that they just feel it's like a last resort and why they'd rather have bad publicity over no publicity. I mean, I understand what you're saying about that, but the fact
Yeah.
that they got to that position, I mean, that also relates to the fact what I was saying about, there just being a mental health crisis.
Right. Well, yeah, and also, like for example, you remember the what is it? Cooper, the guy Cooper, that jumped off the airplane with robbing, because he hijacked the plane, and then he requested a ransom to be brought to the plane. Then he demanded that the plane be, put in the sky again. I mean, it's a super famous incident. I think in the 70s, I think something like that. And the guy jumped off the plane with the money. But the way he did it is he said he had a bomb with him. And I think he did, or it might have been fake, but it looked like a real thing, or it was a real thing. But anyways, nobody ever discovered who he was. Like, it's an unsolved mystery who the guy was. And he jumped off the plane, and that was the last time anyone's ever heard of him, jumping off the plane with cash, with the $2 million or whatever it was.
Oh, wow. So
And
he just jumps off a plane with the money and just...
yeah, it's like a real, you gotta check this out. BT Cooper, something Cooper, some initials Cooper. And yeah, it's an infamous story, The cool thing about that story, like the glorification of that character, there was a massive manhunt for him. I mean, the FBI and everybody was looking for him. They never found him. They supposedly found some of the money laying around, so there's speculation that he might have died in the jump. Like, he was pitch dark when he jumped off the plane, and he was supposedly military. Supposedly he requested 3 parachutes to kind of signify that he was going to take one of the hostages, like, because he had a couple of the girls that were like, he made the plane land and take out all the passengers, and then he only kept some stewardess or whatever. And when he was up in the plane again, he requested 3 parachutes to kind of seem it like, because I think he figured they're gonna give me a fake parachute if they give me 1. So he asked for 3 to say, okay, I'm jumping with 2 other people, and they're not gonna give me fake parachutes. So he finally jumped off by himself. But the cool thing about glorifying this, criminal that took off some money and put people in danger and all this, is that he never hurt anybody. Now, could he have hurt somebody? Maybe, maybe he could have really, but I don't think his intention was to do that, because he didn't do it. He just kind of planned it out, and it worked out the way he wanted. Whether he survived or not, that's another story, because we don't know.
Correct.
But the point remains that the glorification of that character is somewhat understandable, because he never hurt anybody. He was smart. If you think about it, the way he did things, he had a plan. So that kind of criminal, has some sympathy for me, because it's like, okay, you're outsmarting the best people out there. You deserve the reward. But when you go out into a school full of children, I mean, there's no glorification, to me. Like, I don't want to know anything about that person. I don't want to know where he grew up or why he did what he did. It's just such a low level thing to do that it should deserve no attention. Like, and of course you're going to say, well, how can you not put it on the news? It's something horrible that happened. Well, that's the problem. We keep putting it on the news and keep paying attention and talking about it. Other people are going to catch on that it's a cool thing, that it's a way to go, or whatever it is, So
I can see what you mean.
About it.
You're right. There's really nothing you'd want to glorify about it. But at the same time, I understand how there will be other people who see it. And I can kind of understand why the mindset that some of these might have about, like, hey, society hates me, I'm just going to, go shoot people. But I don't really understand about people saying, well, I'd rather have bad publicity than no publicity. But you're right, how other people will be watching that news report and they will go do it. But see, at the same time, and I cannot prove this, but the way it comes off to me is when those incidents happen, the news will show it, give a whole bunch of coverage to it, because guess what? It's going to get them viewers. I don't know for sure, but I'm wondering if some of the news companies are counting on incidents like this to happen. so they'll have something to talk about, something to report on. I'd say one way to maybe lower like active shootings is to like not talk about them as much on the news.
Yeah,
You definitely had a great point there.
Yeah.
But the fact is, the news just isn't going to do that. They're going to want to show it because they know it's going to get them more viewers. They'll have like breaking news, and then like everyone on the reporters, the anchors, they'll all have something to talk about.
But
now,
that's the thing. It's not the reporters. It's not the reporters putting out the news that is the problem. It's us watching them. That's really the problem. Because if we don't watch them, they're not going to do it. You know, if they don't get views, they're going to do something else. You know.
But at the same time, I'm wondering in a weird way if like not necessarily like an active shooter, but just any kind of tragedy story that happens that can like have them put on breaking news and then they show it for a while and people watch. Do you think that in a weird way, some of the people who run the news stations are counting on certain incidents to happen? So they'll have the opportunity to like go live and get all these people hooked?
Well, it's more like they know it's going to happen. It's kind of like the weather. It might be really sunny right now and the whole week looks sunny, but you know at some point it's going to rain. Yeah, so I don't think it's like they foresee it or anything. They know it's going to happen. It's going to come. And they're prepared for it. Like they're prepared for the next thing. They're ready to fly out or do whatever it takes to get the news first. And but again, the problem is not them, it's us. It's the people watching them. We have a morbid curiosity about these things. And I'm guilty of that too.
Of course, most of us are.
Yeah, I like to read about criminals and serial killers and all that. It's just imagination and that kind of thing. We cannot solve the problem before we solve that problem within us, and that might take centuries. That's sadly.
It's kind of like what Michael Jackson said: if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change.
Exactly.
And that's why I was saying earlier, a lot of times I try to be aware of myself first when I, even if it's just blocking someone's view at a comedy show. I'm like, okay, just want to make sure I'm not in the wrong right now. And sometimes I'll get wronged by certain people and I'll first think, oh man, did I do something? And there will be other people around. Oh no, like you were fine. That guy was just being a jerk. And that's fine. I'd rather it be that, like, as long as it wasn't me. Even if there's just an accident on the road and it slows down traffic, they kind of block off part of the road. That will slow down traffic. But what really causes traffic to slow down is that everyone in front
watching
is slowing down to look at the accident.
Right, yeah.
And that's really what they'll tell you in a driver's
safety. There you go. That's a good example, actually.
They'll say, if there's an accident on the road, just keep driving. It's none of your business. Just go about as if it's not there. Like, sure, maybe you got to get around. Maybe you got to merge lanes with some people. If nobody looked at the accident and they were just treating it as if there would be no traffic, merging lanes.
Because a lot of times the traffic is not even, like, the accident's not even on your side of the freeway. Like, there's a whole bank, almost a river between you and the accident, and you're still slowing down the traffic that's coming off the other side. Because everybody's taking a look at what happened, because, the morbid curiosity.
That slows it down more than just the accident itself. But see, that's the whole thing about the news, though. And it's not just about, like, just tragedies or breaking incidents. It also has to do with just current events going on that will kind of get people rattled about, oh my gosh, this is happening here, this is happening there, oh my life is in danger. I've kind of realized that every station will exaggerate things to a degree to where they know their target market, they know their audience. Depending on what type of audience you're catering to, they know what their viewers want. I was talking with a family member one day about what was going on, and he said, I really haven't been watching the news as much. Hey, the 7 o'clock news has to be better than the 6 o'clock news, blah, blah, blah. And basically what he was saying was they've got to do something to keep people interested. It's kind of like what you were saying about comedy in the last episode. If you don't have a line that's in the least bit like edgy or maybe just slightly offensive, no one's going to laugh. Like, you walk out and say everybody is lovely, people will get bored. No audience will pay to see that for a comedy show. Same thing with the news. They're like, well, it's fair weather today. Oh, it's so nice outside. Oh, everything's great. No accidents on the road. It's all sunshine and lollipops. No one wants to watch that.
The funny thing is, I told you I spent some time in Canada, in Ottawa. to be exact, but that was, I don't know, 10 years ago. No, 20 years ago. Shit, 20 years ago.
When it was
The-
minus 40 Celsius and
minus 40,
Fahrenheit.
so, yep. The thing that kind of shocked me a little bit was that, like, the news were like that, like how you were explaining. They were just like, "Hey, everybody, everything's good here." You know,
That's Canada.
there was a robbery, but the good news is that not a lot of things were stolen. They kind of gave you the upside of things, and
Like,
I was kind of quite nice to kind of hear, you know, the different take. I don't know about their view count, and they might have changed since then, but I did notice they were a lot lighter. Like the news were just a lot more friendly. They weren't filled with crime and negative shit.
no,
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
It's just different, I guess. Different
It
culture.
is, but at the same time, it probably sounds good where they put a positive twist on things. And I've noticed that consistently about things on average are kind of more friendlier in Canada. That's just kind of how they are. Every time I've been to Canada, they've always been super nice to me.
They're really nice, yeah.
Yeah, they're just nice people. Maybe for them, like, people will watch, but it's like, of course, in the States, though, people want to see something that's
Wanna
like
see blood.
at least somewhat obscene. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's true. I don't like the sight of blood. I'm squeamish. I can't watch a lot of horror movies, but I
Yeah.
know people who are into that stuff. Same thing with the movie Super Size Me. I don't know if you saw that,
Yeah.
about a guy who had to go eat McDonald's, I think, for a whole month, 30 days straight, something like that.
Right.
Just talked about the health problems he got from that. And he was saying, look, you know, McDonald's is a multi-million-dollar corporation. So it's kind of like they don't care what their food is doing to certain people. Like if they're eating it like the way he was, they're not just going to shut down, but you can stop going there.
Right.
And then they will
That's
have
really
to
the
close
only
down
change you can
stores.
make.
Really what it all comes down to is that you're right about how we kind of have to look at ourselves, or we have to start with us. If someone's making money off of something, why stop them? You know?
Yeah. But see, you know how the saying goes, supply and demand?
Right.
I think that's wrong.
Really?
It's demand and supply. Because demand comes before the supply. The supply comes because of the demand, not the other way around. You see what I'm
Oh,
saying?
I mean, that's true, because you could get something. I mean, I can see your point there, because you could get a whole bunch of like some t-shirt that somebody wants. And if, say, one or two people buy it and you have like 100 shirts you didn't sell, you're like, man,
You have
what am I
supply,
going to do with these? Am I going to
but
have
there's
to
no
like
demand.
just donate them to Goodwill? But yeah,
Yeah.
you have a demand like, hey, do you have more shirts? Do you have more shirts? Like, you can maybe charge more for the ones that you have, or it's like, okay, well, hey, I don't have any more, but you can order one online. I'll have it shipped to you right away.
That's the
No.
thing, is if there is enough demand, somebody will come up with the supply. Because if somebody wants demand, right? They say, hey, you have those t-shirts that we like, that you make? Oh yeah, I have 100. They run out. We want more. Oh, I don't have it. Another guy comes in. I have more. I have 100 more. And if that's not enough, if there's more demand, another guy's like, I have 100. And then you have thousands, millions. It's not going to
Exactly.
stop, actually. The supply doesn't stop, because what creates supply is demand.
You're right.
Really, like if you think about it, anything we want, we can have. Anything we want as a human race, we will have more of. How can you explain that there's more phones than people in the world? Shouldn't we run out of shit to make phones with, like out of glass, out of little microchips that they use or whatever? There's like 8 billion phones out there or whatever. I don't know. I'm not actually sure that it's more than people, but I think it is. I think there's more phones in the world than there are people.
That actually wouldn't surprise me if you kind of think about all those warehouses they have full of phones, because you go into a store, you just see their display models, but
Yeah.
you have no idea what all they've got in the back, or
Exactly.
where they're getting the phones from, how many they have in stock.
And that's the thing, is maybe there's more phones that we even think about because there's so much demand for them. As soon as they became available and stuff, now they become cheap, and you can get a phone for like $100 and it's got everything you need. It's got freaking
Oh, you
a
mean like one of
camera
those
and-
Go phones with like a prepaid contract?
Yeah, or even if you don't have.
Because still, if you get
plan.
an iPhone, it's going to be pretty expensive unless you get an older model and then you sign a contract. Because when I got my new iPhone, I got to trade in my previous one and got like $800 or $900 off, like the retail
Oh, nice.
price of my
Yeah.
new phone. However, I had to sign a 2-year contract with T-Mobile on top of paying for my time, like the talk, text, and data.
They got you good, man.
Yeah, that money
Yeah.
that was left that I would have had to pay just for the iPhone from like
Exactly.
the remaining balance, that got split over those 24 months. And I'm having to pay that with the rest of my phone bill. But at the same time, it's still, I guess, a better deal than if I just went to the Apple store and wanted to buy the new iPhone, because I asked them about trade-in specials and they were like, well, we will maybe take $100 off. And I was like,
Yeah,
no,
but the
it's
thing
not
is,
worth it.
maybe you spend, let's say, $1,000 on the new phone, and you spend them, right? Like you actually buy it, and let's say they take $100 or $200 off yours, so $800 total you spend for the new iPhone. That's still less than that 24-month deal, because there's so many little fees that you don't even see, and because they're like integrated into your monthly payment. At the end of the thing, you end up paying for like two phones, like $2,000. You know, and it comes with the contract that if you terminate it, you still lose, and you're tied to it. It's just something hanging over your shoulders. So what I do is I just buy the phone. I just buy the phone, whether it's brand new from Apple or refurbished by Apple or whatever it is, but I pay cash, you know. My dad taught me to pay cash for everything. I have zero debt, zero debt. Like I don't owe anything. So everything I own is mine, you know, and that's kind of cool, you know.
I mean,
except
that's good.
my place.
I mean,
I rent my place, but that's the
Yeah.
only thing. No, I could just like stop living there anytime. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like I have to pay this for a year. Nothing. Zero. You know, and that it is very liberating, man. It's there's a lot of freedom to that, you know, to live without debt. And I think it's very rare nowadays. You know, it's so easy to live off debt, so that everybody does it, you know.
and that's one of the top rules they say about you having a credit card is there are times people tried to get me to buy something. I'm just trying to tell them a nice way of saying no. I'm saying, well, hey, I'm sorry, like, I don't get paid till next week. You know, I can't afford that right now. And they say, oh, it's a credit card. Like, you don't have to have the money right now. But you shouldn't have that mindset, because they'll tell you the top rule of owning a credit card is pay off all your bills on time.
Yep.
Make sure that whatever you charge to it, you have the money in your bank account to pay off. If you just like swipe it and you're like, whatever, I don't have the money, but it's in my credit balance, then guess what? You make the payment late. Those interest rates are like 24, 25%. They're crazy.
That's
what
it.
you'll have to pay if you don't
You're
make your
screwed.
payments on time. And that's the thing that will lower your credit score the most.
Yeah.
It's just late payments and just also maxing out your credit cards. That doesn't help either. I do make a lot of transactions by credit card. I usually only carry cash if there is a place where it's like I maybe want to tip someone, like the karaoke bar. I'll bring cash just to throw something in the tip jar for the DJ, but I don't really pay cash unless I'm at a place that flat out does not take credit cards. But that's
I use my
very
credit
rare.
card a lot, but
But I always make sure I can pay off the credit card. But I
it's
know
a
what you're
debit
saying.
card with benefits. That's pretty much the way I
Exactly.
use a credit card. I pay it off every single month.
That's why I use the credit card that I have. Yeah, I have the Caesars Rewards credit card, so it'll give me reward credits with Caesars Rewards that I could eventually transfer into like free play at their casinos, or I could use it towards discounts at their restaurants or hotels, stuff like that.
I mean,
Well,
I can show you my credit card, my credit score.
Yeah,
To impress you a little bit. Let's see if I have
Oh.
it right here. That'd be cool to watch.
exactly.
I mean, not to.
You just
be,
will like want to rub it in my face. $7.59. That's Credit Karma.
Yep.
Okay. You want me to impress you with my credit score?
Let me see it.
Okay.
And actually, 759 it went down because of a stupid little bill that I didn't pay because I didn't know. I didn't know that I used that credit card one time.
Oh, is it
I
coming
can't
in?
see it. I gotta. No.
Oh, there
It
it is.
doesn't show. Oh, there it is. Oh, you got me beat.
Oh, you're
Nice,
trying
dude.
to impress me. Look what I got.
Man, you got me good, man.
That was the main thing
you're
about
the
like
man.
I keep up with what
You're the man.
factors into it, and sometimes it will drop if I like use a high percentage of my credit limit. But also if you have good behavior, you're making all your payments on time, which I always do. It's like it will
It
eventually
shows.
it raises your limit. Like I got raised like $700 on my limit with my Caesars Rewards credit card after having it for 1 year. So it's definitely done me well. It's been good to me. And
Nice, man.
also, there's been other times I've just applied for a couple of other cards out here because if you have
Yeah.
more accounts open, that can also
Yeah.
help your score. The one thing I'm
That's
really
that's what actually gets me, because I only have 3, and I don't
Yeah.
I don't get any more. If I did, I'd probably get a higher score, but I don't want to get any more. I probably will one day, soon for the bonuses.
Yeah.
You know, like if I have a big expense month coming up, I'll get one of those credit cards that give you bonus if you spend so much, and you know, get some free money, I guess.
Hey, yeah, some of those do give you cash back, but yeah, that's what I say is that if you're first starting to apply for a credit card, I'm sure a lot of the ones with rewards, like I didn't qualify for when I first started, but there was one I had with the bank that they offered that I got pre-approved for, but it really didn't have any rewards, but they make it for you to start building up a history with credit. So once I had that for about a year or so, or 2,
Yeah.
then I was able to apply for the one that gave the cash back, which eventually led it to where, you know, after having good behavior with those cards, I started getting stuff in the mail from like American Express and Discover saying,
the black card?
You've been pre-approved for our credit cards. So I immediately am having all these people asking me to apply for their cards. But the only problem is you probably have credit history for a long time, probably at least 10 years, right?
No, actually, a lot less, for some other reasons. I actually had a different history, and then it changed because my social security number changed, and it was a whole deal. But it's probably like 3 years old, actually. 3, 4. No, actually, like 4 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got
Because I had like a student visa type of thing going, and that it was like my credit, but it was like basically non-existent. So it was just inactive. And then I activated it like 4 years ago.
Okay.
No, like maybe, like 4.5. But it was funny because I had credit, it just wouldn't go up or down. It was just like baseline for years, for like 10 years. And then all of a sudden it started going up and down or whatever. But it went up because I never needed a credit card to begin with, you know. Like everything I always bought was, do I have the cash for it? Yes. And if not, then I don't get it, you know.
No, I understand. But that's
also everything. Like if I had to buy a car, I would just work my ass off and sell other things to get it, you know.
Right. No, I know what you're saying. You should only treat a credit card as if you would treat it the same way as cash or a debit card.
Right.
You have
just
the
like
money, use it. If you don't, forget about it.
Yeah. And I've had some card payments and stuff, but I actually pay them early because of that. It's like I said, man, it's like a thing hanging over your shoulders, and it's so good to be free of that. It's so good.
Oh, exactly. One thing that they did tell me before I graduated college was if you decide to take out a loan on a house or something like that, because you're like, hey, I'm graduating, I'm going to get a really good job, I'm going to be making all this money, I'll pay off the loan in no time. Like, don't just jump into that. Like, if you do secure a job and you know you have a good feeling like, hey, I think I can pay this off, great, but don't just jump in and borrow money,
too quick.
Because that's how people get in debt. And that's another thing about college is like student loans. I feel sorry for all the people who like spend all that time in college and then they're stuck. They get the job that they wanted or the job that they went to college for, and then they're just stuck paying off those student loans all those years. Like they're getting their paychecks when it's really all it is they're just using them to pay off the loans, which is it's really sad. You just got to know what you're doing before you get into debt.
Absolutely, man. Man, this podcast has everything, right? The life lessons, debit, credit, supply and demand.
I think so. This definitely was a multi-layered episode.
Cool, man.
Well, hey, yeah, you're right. This podcast has everything. So definitely, this was a fun episode. It was great to be here. And you don't know what you'll run into on this podcast. So the only way to find out is to listen, right?
Yes, but it's also important for people to know that this is not financial advice in any way, shape, or form.
That's right. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. What about you? What do you want them to take it with?
And some pepper.
All right. I think that this wraps up the episode. So definitely been a great time today. And I hope we have a great time next time on the Napoleon and Gueco podcast. We will have an even better time if we see you over here.
Absolutely. We need audience to communicate with us and comment to see what you guys want us to talk about. We'll talk about anything.
Or just like, what do you think about what we're talking about? So leave a
Right.
comment. Make
Your
sure.
thoughts.
Exactly. Make sure to tune in with us next time on the Napoleon and Gueco podcast.
Peace.
Good night, everybody. Peace.